There are friendships that form quickly, burn brightly, and fade just as fast. And then there are the quieter, deeper connections, the ones forged in the heat of shared creative work, nurtured through mutual respect, and carried forward across decades in the private chambers of memory and gratitude. For Hayley Mills, now 79 years old, and reflecting on a life lived entirely in the embrace of storytelling and performance, one relationship stands above many others in its lasting significance. That relationship belongs to Maureen O'Hara, the magnificent, flame-haired Irish actress who shared the screen with a 14-year-old Hayley during the filming of Disney's beloved classic, The Parent Trap, in 1961. For many years, Mills kept her deepest reflections about O'Hara largely to herself. She spoke warmly when asked, of course, but never with the full openness that the relationship deserved. Now, at this particular moment in her life, with the perspective that only age and experience can provide, Hayley Mills has decided to speak honestly, completely, and from the heart about what Maureen O'Hara truly meant to her, both as a professional and as a woman who quietly shaped the course of her life in ways she is only now fully able to articulate. To understand why the relationship with Maureen O'Hara mattered so profoundly to Hayley Mills, it helps to understand the world into which Hayley was born. She arrived on April 18, 1946 in London, the daughter of Sir John Mills, one of Britain's most celebrated and distinguished actors, and Mary Hayley Bell, a respected playwright and novelist of genuine accomplishment. Creativity was not simply encouraged in the Mills household. It was the very atmosphere the family breathed. Growing up surrounded by theatrical conversation, by the discipline of craft and the seriousness of artistic endeavor, Hayley developed an instinctive relationship with performance from an exceptionally young age. She understood, even as a small child, that acting was not mere entertainment. It was a form of truth-telling, a way of illuminating the human condition through carefully constructed fiction. That understanding, absorbed almost through osmosis in the family home, would serve her enormously when the cameras began rolling. Her screen debut came at 12 in the 1959 British crime drama Tiger Bay, made alongside her father. The performance was immediately noted for qualities that should not have been present in someone so young. There was an emotional authenticity to her work, a natural, unforced quality that distinguished her immediately from the merely competent child performers of the era. Walt Disney himself noticed, recognizing in young Hayley precisely the combination of innocence, intelligence, and innate warmth that his studio's particular vision of family entertainment required. The contract with Walt Disney Studios that followed transformed Hayley Mills from a promising British child actress into a genuine global phenomenon. Her debut Disney film, Pollyanna, released in 1960, was a sensation. She played the relentlessly optimistic orphan with such radiant, unaffected sincerity that audiences of every age responded with immediate and overwhelming warmth. The Academy recognized the performance with a special juvenile award, making Mills one of the youngest recipients of Oscar recognition in the history of the ceremony. Pollyanna remains, more than 6 decades later, one of the most enduring films in the Disney catalog, and its enduring power rests almost entirely on Hayley's shoulders. If Pollyanna established her, The Parent Trap confirmed her as something genuinely extraordinary. Released in 1961, the film required Mills to play dual roles simultaneously, portraying identical twin sisters separated at birth and reunited at summer camp, each determined to bring their divorced parents back together. The technical demands alone were considerable. The emotional demands were even greater. Mills met both with a composure and skill that left industry professionals genuinely astonished. But the experience gave her something beyond professional accomplishment. It gave her Maureen O'Hara. Mills has described her first meeting with Maureen O'Hara with a vividness that suggests the memory has lost none of its original intensity across the intervening 65 years. She was 14 years old, already famous, already experienced by most standards, yet still fundamentally a child navigating a world designed for adults. O'Hara, by contrast, was 40 years old, a fully formed force of cinematic nature who had already built one of Hollywood's most formidable careers. She had starred alongside John Wayne in some of the most iconic films of the 1940s and 1950s. She had survived and thrived within a Hollywood system that was not designed to be kind to women of independent spirit and strong opinion. The contrast between them on that first day could hardly have been more striking. O'Hara entered a room the way very few people ever learn to enter a room, with a quiet, absolute authority that required no announcement and sought no validation. Her famously vivid red hair, her direct gaze, her bearing, all of it communicated something that transcended mere physical presence. It communicated certainty. Mills, by her own candid admission, found this initially overwhelming. She had grown up around accomplished, confident people. Her father was a celebrated actor of genuine stature. But Maureen O'Hara was something she had not quite encountered before. There was nothing intimidating in any unkind sense about O'Hara's manner. She was not cruel, not dismissive, not condescending toward the young actress sharing her scenes. But she was absolutely uncompromisingly professional in a way that communicated unmistakably that the work was sacred, that the set was a place of serious endeavor, and that everyone present, regardless of age or inexperience, was expected to honor that seriousness with their full commitment and attention. As filming progressed and the initial awe began to settle into something more comfortable and productive, Hayley Mills found herself receiving an education that no acting class could have provided. Simply watching Maureen O'Hara work was itself a masterclass in the deeper disciplines of screen performance. O'Hara was not an actress who relied on dramatic gesture or obvious emotional display. Her power came from an extraordinary economy of expression, a precision of physical and emotional communication that made every glance, every slight shift of posture, every momentary change in the quality of her attention, carry enormous narrative weight. Mills has reflected at length on how observing O'Hara's process changed her fundamental understanding of what screen acting actually demanded. Before The Parent Trap, she had performed largely on instinct, trusting her natural gifts and her deeply absorbed understanding of storytelling. O'Hara showed her, through example rather than instruction, that instinct was only the beginning. What distinguished the truly great screen performers from the merely talented was the discipline to refine and direct that instinct with absolute intentionality, to know not just what you were feeling, but precisely how to let the camera see it without ever allowing it to feel manufactured or performed. Between takes, O'Hara would occasionally take a moment to speak with Mills directly, offering observations about the craft with the quiet authority of someone who had spent decades earning the right to make them. One piece of counsel in particular has stayed with Mills through every decade of her subsequent career. Know who you are before the world tells you who to be. It is the kind of advice that sounds simple in the telling and reveals its full depth only gradually, across years of lived experience. Mills has acknowledged that she did not fully understand it at 14. She has come to understand it completely in the years since. What has perhaps surprised people most in Hayley's recent openness about O'Hara is her emphasis not on the actress's formidable professional reputation, but on her warmth, humor, and fundamental humanity. The public image of Maureen O'Hara, forged across decades of playing strong-willed, fiercely independent women, was one of almost unrelenting strength and seriousness. The private woman, as Mills experienced her on the set of The Parent Trap, was considerably more layered and, in many moments, considerably more delightful. O'Hara possessed a genuinely wonderful sense of humor, dry and sharp and utterly Irish in its character, that she deployed with perfect timing during the inevitable tensions and frustrations of a demanding production. She could tell stories about her early years in Ireland, or her various adventures filming with John Wayne across the rugged landscapes of the American West, that would reduce an entire film crew to helpless laughter. And she did this not for effect, not to perform generosity, but because she understood instinctively that a relaxed, happy set produces better work than a tense, anxious one. This combination of absolute professional seriousness and genuine human warmth was, Mills has said, one of the most important lessons she carried away from their time together. It dispelled a false choice that the entertainment industry often presents to young women in particular, the idea that strength and warmth are somehow in opposition, that authority and kindness cannot coexist in the same person. O'Hara demonstrated every day on that set that they could and should. Mills has also spoken, with increasing directness as she has grown older, about her retrospective understanding of the pressures and indignities that O'Hara navigated throughout her career. Hollywood in the 1940s and 1950s was not a forgiving environment for women who refused to be agreeable and decorative and quietly compliant. O'Hara was none of those things. She had opinions, she expressed them. She pushed back against decisions she considered wrong or unfair, and she insisted on being treated with the professional respect that her talent and her box office track record abundantly warranted. This cost her something. It always does. Women who insist on being taken seriously in environments that are not designed to take them seriously are routinely described in terms that would never be applied to men displaying identical qualities. O'Hara was sometimes called difficult. She was sometimes characterized as cold or arrogant by people who confused self-respect with hostility. Mills, looking back from her own perspective as a woman who spent her entire career navigating the same industry's particular attitudes toward women, understands now what she could only dimly perceive at 14. O'Hara wasn't difficult. She was principled. She wasn't arrogant. She was certain of her own worth in the face of a system that preferred its women uncertain. When Maureen O'Hara passed away in October 2015 at the age of 95, Hayley Mills felt the loss with a depth that perhaps surprised even her. The two women had not been in constant contact across the intervening decades. Their paths had diverged, their careers had taken different directions, and the particular intimacy of a shared production naturally fades with time and distance. But some connections, Mills has reflected, do not require constant maintenance to remain deeply, permanently meaningful. Losing O'Hara felt, Mills has said, like losing a particular quality of light that had always been somewhere in the background of her life. It was the loss of a woman who represented a specific era, a specific standard, a specific kind of integrity that is genuinely rarer now than it was then. It was the loss of someone who had, at a critical and formative moment, shown a shy 14-year-old girl what it looked like to move through the world with complete and uncompromising authenticity. Now at 79, with a career that spans 7 decades and a life rich with experience, love, loss, and continued creative engagement, Hayley Mills carries Maureen O'Hara with her in everything she does. When she watches The Parent Trap today, she does not simply see a beloved film from her childhood. She sees Maureen's face, her gestures, the particular quality of her attention, and she remembers the small, precise moments of kindness and instruction that shaped her in ways she could not have anticipated at the time. Maureen O'Hara was not simply a co-star, Mills has said. She was a teacher, a protector, and ultimately a friend. She came into my life at exactly the moment I most needed to see what a woman of genuine strength and integrity looked like. And she showed me, without ever making a lesson of it, that those qualities were worth fighting for, worth preserving, worth carrying forward through everything that life and this industry might throw at you. That, perhaps, is the deepest truth Hayley Mills has finally chosen to tell. Not a revelation of scandal or controversy, but something more quietly significant. The truth of a young girl who watched a remarkable woman and understood, in ways that have taken a lifetime to fully articulate, that she was witnessing something worth honoring, something worth remembering, something worth, at last, saying out loud. Like, subscribe, and follow for more.